Mirella here with life coaching tips and strategies for everyday living. So do I dare say to you that I have the answer to every problem? Do you believe me when I say that? Do you want to know what the answer to every problem is? You have to want the solution more than the problem, because solutions are action-based. Whether you like it or not, these problems, these challenges, these obstacles, whatever it is that you want to call them, they are inevitable. Conflict is just a part of life. And I don't know what you're going through right now, but odds are you probably are. You're either going through something right now, or you have gone through something, or you will be going through something. Real cheerful topic today, but it's true. And we need to address it. What if I told you that maybe what you think is your problem isn't really your problem, at least entirely? This topic is so important and it's so big that I decided to do a 3-part series. So for today, we are going to focus on just the big picture of problems. I want to lay down some groundwork. I want us to be on the same page and give you some food for thought. So things that you can think about this week as you go about your day. So when you come back next week, we can build on that foundation. Now, I started this video with a general statement that problems are inevitable. Why do we have problems to begin with? Like, nobody wants them. And the answer is, life is complicated. People are complicated. You and me are complicated. We all have basic needs that we're trying to meet on a daily basis. And those needs are physical, they're emotional, they're relational, they're spiritual. So as we go about our business, trying to meet these needs, anything that comes in our way of that becomes a problem. It interrupts our pattern of life. In other words, we're forced to take our eyes off of what we want, and that in and of itself is the problem. There's 2 natural responses that are very common to people. What are the 2 things that we tend to do? Complain, that's a big one, and we blame. Now, I don't want to say that it's never appropriate. I honestly would admit that there is an appropriate amount of complaining and blaming that is acceptable, so long as it's there to move us forward and trying to find solutions. But here's the thing. A lot of us end up getting stuck in this blaming and complaining cycle. It's a vicious cycle where we tend to focus on what the other person is saying, what the other person is doing, what they're not saying, what they're not doing. We tend to make that the focal point. And if that's the only thing that we're focusing on, that's where we get stuck. And the trap is that we tend to take a slice of what is happening, of the bigger picture. We focus on that, we magnify that, and then we make that the entire story. Once we decide that this is the only way to look at this problem, by definition, you're stuck. You're not allowing room or space to see another perspective. May I suggest that that's a problem? By clinging to one narrative and deciding that you're not going to budge, you're not going to see things in a different way, it leaves no room for growth. If you choose to believe that this is the only way to look at this situation, then in essence what you're doing is you're digging in your heels and you are saying, I am not willing to grow from this. I am not willing to learn. I'm not willing to understand that there's other things at work and that some of it is in my control. If you're not willing to look at your situation honestly and objectively, then by default, you will always have this problem. That's what I want to move us away from, this defeatist way of looking at our lives. Guys, the quality of your life is based on the choices that you make. We have choices to think differently about these things, and I admit it doesn't come easily. If you're in a fixed situation, one that's beyond your control, that you have no power to change, I'm telling you, complaining and blaming isn't going to get you anywhere. When that becomes your focal point, that's it. There's no place to go from there. And this is where you have to be honest with yourself and say, do I truly want a solution more than I want holding on to this problem? Because looking for a solution is going to require you to loosen the grip of your problem. Stop holding it close to you and nurturing it, growing it like a newborn baby. We got to let it go. And that's going to require some new skills. And this is where an experienced life coach or possibly therapist or counselor can do their work. It's hard to do by yourself. You've probably heard the saying that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond. So maybe the bigger problem is not just what you're facing, but it's to acknowledge that I am not equipped to meet this challenge on my own. If you want to see change in your circumstance, it's not necessarily going to be by changing your circumstance, but the power really lies in changing how you think about a circumstance, how you behave in a certain circumstance, how you respond and react. That's what you have the power to control. So this is what I want to leave you with today. 3 things to problem solving. One is you have to want the solution more than the problem. You have to be willing to grow and learn something. When you dwell on your problem, it becomes the focal point. It's the one narrative that keeps looping in your mind. That is not productive. You cannot continue to stay in that default mode. Get into the habit of finding solutions. The second thing is to stop blaming. Stop pointing outwards to the things that you can't control. If you're in the habit of blaming other people, pointing the finger at other people, what you're really doing is taking yourself off the hook. And that's not requiring you to show up in the way that you need to. You have so much more potential that you could be tapping into that's going to help you show up in the way that you need to. That's productive and that serves you. The last thing is stop complaining. Oh boy, have we mastered this to no end. You guys, we're not even aware of how much that we engage in complaining. And yes, it is socially acceptable when we get together. There are things that we're going to share that we are not happy with, that we wish that we can change. That if you are in the habit of complaining without being in the habit of coming up with solutions, guys, complaining serves no purpose. What if you made it a rule this week that whatever I complain about, I'm going to find a solution to? What if you spent the same amount of time and energy as you did complaining, and you did that with your problem solving? In many cases, that's the problem. We spent a disproportionate amount of time in our negativity, in our complaining, than we do in trying to solve this problem. Maybe what you keep in the back of your head is, if I can't or won't do something about it, I won't complain about it. Because honestly, guys, if we're spending our time not seeking solutions, blaming other people, complaining about situations, and it's not serving us, we're just indulging. Indulging in our problems doesn't solve our problems. So we got to get out of the habit of doing that and be willing to grow. Be willing to look at this obstacle and saying, this is affording me an opportunity. What is it? So guys, this was just some food for thought to get us thinking on our problems and how to go about problem solving. So check out my next video next week. It's only going to build on this, and I'll give you more of my ideas. If you like this video, make sure you click the subscribe button. I do upload videos weekly. This is life coaching tips and strategies for everyday living.